Hi, my name is Josie. You may know me from the life drawing classes that I taught last year at the Royal Overseas Club house in London, or from you might have seen my paintings which are hanging up there at the moment. If not, hi. Welcome to the second video of two videos that I was asked to make for ROSL at home to help us stay creative during this time. The first video was on portraits, and this video will be about hands and how to draw hands, and it's going to be very basic, just a short overview, just some tips and techniques that I've picked up along the way. You don't need anything specifically to help you engage with this video. It might be best if you have a pencil and a piece of paper, but if you only have, like I said before, the back of an envelope and a biro, that will also suffice sufficiently. Okay, so we're going to look at the hand, and we're going to begin with the wrist. So we start at the wrist of the hand, and then about halfway we get to the knuckles, and about halfway again we get to the sort of end of the fingers. So just like we did with the face, where we portioned the face halfway and then halfway again from that. So those are your sort of first three markers. I'd go, where's my wrist? Where are the end of my fingers? Where's the knuckles? So you go, like you're folding a piece of paper, you go from the sort of edges, and then you find the middle of that, and then you find the middle again, which is going to be these knuckles here. And that's quite useful. And you can look at that, sort of whatever someone's doing, you can find those markers. Notice that all of the fingers and the thumb slightly taper into the centre, and the centre is the middle of the index finger, so it's just off symmetrical. It's asymmetrical because you've got two fingers over here, but the middle of the hand is actually the middle of the middle finger. They all sort of taper together, and they form what I like to call a glove or a mitten, if you think about an oven glove or traditional kind of mittens. So when I'm drawing a quick hand, or any sort of hand actually, I often mitten or glove the fingers. You might hear that term used if you're looking at other tutorial videos, and that just means instead of drawing round each finger and getting something that looks like a glove without a hand in it, you're gonna put them all together as just one shape. So we're looking at basic shapes. This is a square, this is a kind of, I'll draw it for you later. Other things to note, the thumb is on a completely different plane to the rest of the fingers. So here we go. So we've got, this is the metacarpal coming down here. We've got a tendon basically coming down here, and it goes along the side of the index finger. If you think about fingers like chips, I'm talking about fish and chips. We've got the top of the chip, side of the chip, bottom of the chip, front of the chip, back of the chip. That's going to help. Anyway, so, and we've got this kind of triangle of stuff here. That's a whole side edge of a palm, and then we've also got, I don't know if you can see this, sort of another, we've got two, but I'm looking at the top one, this tendon coming down here, and that's forming the inside top edge of the chip of the thumb, so to speak. That was probably a bit confusing. Don't worry if all of this intro sounds quite confusing, because I'll draw it later on in the video, and that will help, especially if you're a visual learner. So the thumb is on a different plane. It's also much shorter. We have this is really useful to note. So where does the thumb start? About midway up the palm. Where does it end? Just in between the first two knuckles. It's only got two digits to it, whereas the rest of the fingers have three. This may seem completely obvious, and absolutely disregard it. But for me, I think it was really, I still have to kind of remember, where does the thumb start again? I start drawing it, it looks a bit wrong, and I realise I've started it down here and I've made it really long, or I've started it coming out from the first knuckle. It's worth noting, and it's also worth noting that it's got this kind of aspect where it's coming quite away from the rest of the fingers. You can see the meat of it. We're going to talk about that as well. So just want you to have a big feel of your hand, and this, this is huge. And it will continue to evolve. I think, the level of stuff that we do using our mobile phones these days, this muscle is getting a lot of work. It's huge. Have a feel of it. You try different hands. So my dominant hand, which is my right hand, is much harder than this one. Anyway, also note this bit. So we're flat at the inside bottom edge of the wrist, then we come almost out into the palm, and then we have another concavity depression in the middle, straight in the middle of the palm, that hollow, and we've got another pad of muscle here, and we've got a big thick pad getting slightly thinner towards the little finger edge, but look how thick that is. So this is the biggest thing when I'm teaching drawing. I see people disregarding the width of the palm, and it's the biggest thing I want to stress. It's a chunky, muscly, sort of massive object. And the other thing I was going to talk about is how the wrist and the hand itself sits onto the forearm, and it can come straight out like that. It depends what you're doing. It mostly, in most relaxed poses, falls somewhere between its arc of maximum movement. So its arc of maximum movement is, if you try and just having your hand like this, try and tilt it all the way to the left. I know I'm mirrored in the video, just do what I say, not what I'm doing. And all the way to the right. And you can go much further right than you can left, or much further on the little finger side than you can on the thumb side. And so our natural sort of average between those two values is about here. So this is a relaxed position for the arm to be in. If you imagine someone walking along, they've got their forearm coming straight down, their hand has got a slightly more acute angle between the forearm and the wrist on the little finger side, and a slightly more obtuse angle on the thumb side. Good things to note. Again, we're looking at like relaxed positions of hands, because mostly you'll be drawing this. It's quite unusual, unless you're sort of drawing comic books or something, that you'll be drawing loads of really excited, kind of stressed hands. Or so in an excited position, yes, the fingers do splay. But generally, when people hold their hands in a relaxed position, two of the fingers, at least two, sometimes three, tend to fall together, with little or minimal gap in between them. See what I mean? We'll be tackling that later, don't worry about that. The other thing I want to say back onto the palm is that this is going to be a little bit difficult to show you. Let's call it the rectangle, the wedge of the palm. I'm going to think about it like a matchbox, but a matchbox whose end is actually slanted. So if you look at the back of the hand, the knuckles up here, they are defining for us the end of the top of the palm. However, underneath, when we look at the inside of the palm, the webbing between the fingers is what defines for us the beginning of the finger, the end of the palm. And if you look at how far away those two are, so I've got knuckle here, and webbing is all the way over here. So there is a slant between them. Do you see what I mean? It slopes off. We slope down. And it's huge. I cannot stress enough the importance of how wide that space is and how thick it is. Just have a look. So here's the middle of the knuckle. there's the webbing, and there's the first knuckle. So it what you sometimes see is, why does it look, so questions that arise often, why does my hand look odd? Is the thumb in the right position? Is the wrist sitting on the hand in the right angle? Are your fingers too long or too short? Have you included this webbing? Have you got them too far apart? Is there a more natural position that they're in? If you exaggerated the space between them. I'm not assuming anything, you're probably great at drawing hands, but here we are. So I'm going to launch into some drawings. Now I don't know how you might want to use this video. You may want to draw from it. You know, you could pause it and draw some hand shapes. I tend to gesticulate a lot, and that might be useful. You could just listen. You could try and do some drawing with me later. However, enjoy. We're going to start by drawing the palm facing down. So I'm going to start from the forearm, like we talked about. We start from the neck in the portrait, we start from the forearm in the hand. I'm going to do a really rough hand shape, which is a kind of square. So this is the forearm. Notice this angle and this angle. So we come down and then we reach a junction, then we go this way. And that line continues all the way to the middle of the middle finger. I'm going to make a kind of, this is with the fingers splayed out. So our mitten, our glove is looking a little bit wide. And then I'm going to define the ends of these fingers a bit better. And then I'm going to halve this distance again. So I'm going to say where in a similar arch, it's going to be like the same proportion where the arch of the middle knuckle is. So you've got this one, you've got the median one, you've got the terminal one. And that actually comes around in this position of the hand and lines up with the end of the thumb. And this is going to line up with the median phalanx there. So this is, you can say that's the end of that, and then halfway through that, that's where this is starting from, and then this is a pad of muscle, and this, as we remember from before, this is coming out at an angle, and this is halfway. This is interosseous muscle. It's a big muscle here, and we're going to come down the middle of these fingers. I'm going to come down the middle, come down the middle. We might put some other markers on now, so we're going to go for the one in between here. I think that might be needing to be a little bit further down. So that's there. This one's going to be about there. About there. Whoa, maybe there. And we remember that the knuckle, where the knuckle is not where the fingers begin. So going to put those in. So we're going to say maybe, you know, this is the knuckle, a bit further back. These are the knuckles, and then we're going to just put the webbing in. That's quite fun. And this webbing, look how far down it comes. So that's all the way down there. And we might, in this view of the hand, we're looking slightly from that angle, so we're going to see the top of this thumb, and we're going to see the inside of this thumb. Kind of like that. That'll do. And what I like to do with these is I sort of give myself a distance with the knuckles. I'm bringing all these down now because I think they're all looking a bit too long. And using that distance, so the shape of the finger bone is a bit like a very sort of characteristic dog bone, and then you've got the end one, which is still this, and that's the end bone, and then, so let's say this is an index finger then, so this is the shape of the bones, and then on the bottom of the bones you have these, oh god, you can't see that, pads of muscle, and they sit under here, and so it's sort of, and this is the metacarpal, this is the palm, this is the knuckle on the top, so that's why you get this kind of characteristic wow, shape of someone with a very muscly finger who's in an X-ray machine. And so we can sort of use a bit of that to make a vague sort of shapes for these that are not the traditional, oh, I'm going to draw a hand, let me draw a hand like that. I mean, that's not bad. You could, nothing's bad, nothing's, you know, you might have a very portly hand and you might not see this level of boniness, you may or may not. And this is looking a little bit bony, so let's then come around that and use that to inform sort of slightly more neutral. Something like that. Well, no, I don't think we'd see that. I think that would come in like that. We might get some of these over here, and I haven't put the fingernails in. I mean, you could rub back through at this stage. You could rub back your workings and put some shadows in, decide where the light is coming from, and also make these 3D. You could make these 3D, so you're just adding another plane, and that's not going to work with that then. Oh, okay, we'll decide that's all in shadow there. That's all in shadow, this is probably in shadow. That's one hand, kinda. Another hand. So we're now going to use the matchbox matchstick system. So we've got a hand that's sort of flat on a table. Now this is as if I chopped all the fingers off. So this is chop all the fingers off. What do you see? And we're going back in space. And this is the top of the palm. And this is the side of the palm. And I like to also imagine, this is why this is a dotted line, because I'm imagining if we chop the whole hand off, how that's connecting to the forearm. And then we have a different plane. We talked about this. We have a different plane coming out. The thumb is sitting in its own plane. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the same thing that I did here, and the same thing that I did here I'm going to do for the fingers. So I'm going to say, okay, we're going to have a finger, a finger, a finger, a finger, okay, and a thumb, and then we're going to start. So we're working back to front. It may seem illogical, but we're actually building up a foundation. Like in another drawing, we might work front to back, or when you're faced with foreshortening like this, you know, actually you could place the fingers here. We might do that next. Actually, that's going to be more. So we've got that as a foundation, and then we're going to place the ends of the fingers. So let's just imagine those, and then we're going to come back and do the middle knuckles. So the thumb, we only have the one, so that's doing that. That's the end of that finger, thumb, and that's joining on there. And then we've got the middle, and what you will find if you're drawing someone like this might line up with the bottom of the palm. So, you know, you've got that, this one, and maybe this one. So these are all connected up here, because this is the knuckle on the back, this is the webbing underneath. So this line represents this line. I'm really sorry if this is confusing. Just bear with it, and hopefully it will bear out. So this is this one, these ones. Yeah. And got to do one there, and that's, there we go. Put some fingernails, not too much detail, and this is coming out a bit far, and rub through, something like that. There we go. So that's one hand. We're going to draw another hand very similar to that, but just a tiny bit more foreshortened. So we've got, same principle, we've got the knuckles here, we're travelling back in space. We've got the thumb on its own plane. You could travel, actually, we're going to do the end of the fingers, the end of those fingers, the end of this one. The thumb on its own plane. So really think about that chip thing. So you're making these, you know, very detailed things into sort of more like buildings or chips or building blocks or however you want to talk about it. So you've got a top plane and you've got a middle tendon, you've got a middle tendon here. So that's this line here as it comes up and attaches. Oh, I'm not really bony enough, but there's, it attaches up here, and then you got, it comes out, you got the halfway point of the thumb. So this is the side, this is the top, this is the other side, this is the underneath. So we got this, and we're going to draw our base of our back of our palm. We're going to draw, going to change that angle very slightly. We're going to draw the edge there, and then we've got, let's say we've got quite foreshortening, so we've got our elbow sitting somewhere back here. So we've got our midline travelling up there. We've got the top muscle of our forearm, we've got the inside of our elbow, we've got the bicep there, we've got the inside of the forearm coming down, we've got the outside of the elbow, the outside of the forearm, and this would go away up in space somewhere. And we're going to carry on with this system. So this system applies all the way through. So here's the first knuckle, here's these two. This one might be slightly further back, so this one might be like that, and we're going to have another one, another two, and this one, and that's going to have to come in, and then we do this scoopy thing. Could do another scoopy thing, and I think sometimes with fingers close together, just one line to define them. So if I'd have gone right round, they might not quite look like they might look like there's too many fingers. That's what can happen, you know. And you might be seeing a little bit of the space inside here, and I really don't like that. I'm going to take that off. The nail is best not to put in unless you're very confident about where it is, and I'm not in this particular drawing. That didn't look right. And then you can just take away some of your working lines and get something. This is one way to draw hands. Can I just say, this is a very particular way to draw hands that's helped me to feel confident enough to draw hands in lots of different ways. So I don't always draw hands like this, but if I'm struggling with a hand, I know I can come back to this. So don't feel limited by this at all. We're going to do... So we're now going to start playing with foreshortening. So we're going to look at the same principle. So here, this is a wrist, this is the forearm, come in back away like that. And then we've got the top plane of the wrist, we've got that side. So what we're drawing is we're drawing someone doing this. So we've got this plane, and we've got this big muscle here. This is here, we've got these tendons coming down, this is the thumb, this is the knuckles, very prominent on the top, and this is receding away from us. So this is just like any kind of basic normal foreshortening. So this is our little chip, you know, going out somewhere, you know, away from us. And here we go, and we come in, you know, can come into the bones, and then you could make it 3D, like with other parts of the body. You might do this, and then you might decide where do you see any other parts of the fingers, you know, that have been folded. Where's the light coming from? What's in shadow? What's in shadow? Maybe all of this isn't actually, yeah, all of this would be in shadow, and then you'd have a little bit of light on this bit. Because it's that planes thing again, so there we go, ish. Okay, so planes, planes. These are probably in shadow too. Depends where your light source is. And that's one bit of foreshortening. We're now going to draw a hand doing that, something like that. It's going to be very exciting. This hand, we're going to be looking at arches. So again, we come back to the back of our palm. What's the back of our palm doing? So that's, remember, that's this part. That's if we squared this off to a rectangle, or we sometimes draw it as a circle, and we just chop the hand off. Very sharp blade. Chop the hand off. And then at what point is that intercepted by the arch, as if we chopped all the fingers off? And then remember that we've also got the plane of the thumb doing something different from the fingers. So these are our main kind of areas that we might begin with. Actually, I'm going to add a fourth one onto that. A fourth area that we might begin with is where these fingers end, and I'm just doing this as an arc for right now, so I'm just going to decide it. So like a plan, like a line drawing, like you would do a stick drawing if you were going to do a figure. So this is the same principle applied to hands. So this is our stick figure plan of basic shapes and basic straight lines as to where we're going to put things in the drawing. I just want to come into this archiness and explain it a little bit better. So if we just take a look at the hand, you know, it's got this cupping ability. So we've got sort of flat, muscle, depression, muscle on this side, muscle on this side, muscle over here. And all the fingers, when they come round like this, they form an arch. Your wrist forms an arch. So that's why, oh wow, sorry, that's an arch and this is an arch. And this mirrors that arch. So it gets kind of, looks a bit like a Fibonacci, spirally, shellfish. No, not shellfish, you know what I'm trying to say. So that's the big muscle of the thumb. This is the depression within the hand. We're going to then actually go into what we did before, which is where defining the, so we've defined them in one dimension, these fingers, in a two-dimensional way. We're going to define them in a three-dimensional way by saying how big is the end that's coming towards us. And I know fingers aren't square, but I find it really helpful to imagine that they are. We'll finesse them later, but if I get too hooked up on making them, you know, trying to draw them, what is the word I'm looking for? Like trying to draw them really, like the outside of them before I've understood the structure of the inside of them, or trying to draw them in, you know, all the really fine details that they have before I've understood where they're headed. I fall into traps. So this, and I'm being a bit more relaxed with this, so I'm just, but you could come back, yeah, take the squares system all the way through. So yeah, it just goes right the way through. This one's going to be, we're seeing a lot of the side of this one, and that might not be quite as tall as that. And like with any drawing, you can adjust these. This is a plan. It's meant to be adjusted. You know, once you get a bit further, you might think, oh, I feel like adjusting that. And then you can come through. You've defined where your planes are, so you know what the side of that finger is. So that is this inside side of the ring finger, and this is the underneath of it, and this is the end of it. There we go. So kind of So we're going to come back down, and you might, in a view like this, you will see in between the fingers, and this, you know, you might see a wider proportion underneath, and you'd see an even wider proportion underneath here, and a bit less up there. And that's got a bit dark and a bit hard to see, so I'm just going to come back and change that. And so, and the thumb. So this is light source, that underneath of the thumb. Let's have a look at it. What shape is it? We come up to its knuckle, side of the thumb knuckle, hand, and that's like that. And come back through. Ooh, come back through. Come back through. So these, then you could start getting a bit more sort of undulating in your line. So this one's right down the middle, and little finger. I mean, that's not going to be as dark. Actually, it might switch in that location. It depends whether the light is going to come through here. I think it would. I think it would come through and it would hit. So you would hit there. Anyway, and then this is probably going to be a shadow. There's just a lot of kind of shadows in here. This is quite, because if you're doing this, this tends to be flat, but if you're bringing your fingers round in this way, look at this. If you're bringing those two close together, to do that, you get these more. These muscles are bringing these fingers close together, so that's why that's looking like it's got a lot of tension in the palm. And then you might want to have a little bit more light coming through there, and then you might want to just say nothing on the underside of the palm is going to be as light as this light or this light, and then you've got the arm that this is attached to, sort of reaching up at you, like, and that's all going to be in shadow because the light is probably coming from the behind into the side. And I'm just gonna, that looks like it's a bit too big. So that's one foreshortened hand. I hope that's been useful and you feel more confident and able to go and draw hands, either your own, other people's, or from references. I will, in the description, talk about some reference material that has furthered my own understanding, and have a wonderful time drawing.